I pulled my old Ford pickup into the gravel driveway of our family ranch just outside Bozeman, Montana. The kind of place where the big sky stretches forever and the wind carries the scent of pine and sagebrush. It was well past midnight, and my scrubs were still stiff with the day's grime from the ER at Bozeman Health. 18 grueling hours on shift, saving a ranch hand from a tractor rollover, stitching up a kid who'd tangled with barbed wire, and holding the hand of an elderly widow as she slipped away from pneumonia. My boots crunched on the frost-kissed ground as I trudged up the wooden steps to the porch, the same one where Mom used to sit with her coffee, watching the sun dip behind the Bridger Mountains. The porch light was off, which struck me as odd, but exhaustion dulled my instincts. All I craved was to kick off these boots, heat up some leftover chili, and collapse before another dawn patrol. I fumbled for my keys, the familiar jingle a small comfort, and slid the house key into the lock. It didn't budge. I jiggled it, thinking maybe the cold had warped the metal. But no, solid resistance. My heart skipped, but I knocked lightly, figuring it was a mix-up. The door creaked open, and there stood my sister, Lacey, in my faded Montana State hoodie, cradling a steaming mug that smelled like Dad's herbal tea. She looked at me with that cool detachment, phone in hand, scrolling like I was an unwelcome solicitor. "Well, Taylor," she said, her voice flat as the prairie. "Didn't think you'd drag in this early." "The key doesn't work," I replied, my words hanging in the crisp air. "Yeah, about that." We changed the locks.
No hesitation. No softening.
Dad's been under a lot of stress with the ranch finances. Having you crash here whenever. It's too much. I need my space, too. I felt the ground shift under me, but I kept my footing. "You changed the locks on me?" Without a word, she sipped her tea, eyes unwavering. "Look, you've been freeloading here for years since Mom passed. We all walk on eggshells around your moods, your crazy shifts. It's draining everyone dry." Her words landed like a gut punch, but I didn't swing back. Lacey had always been the golden child, the one who charmed the neighbors at county fairs, while I was out pulling all-nighters in med school. But this, erasing me from her home? I glanced past her into the warm glow of the living room, seeing the same leather couch, the antler chandelier, the faint scent of Mom's lavender sachets. It didn't feel like mine anymore. "Got it," I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded curtly and shut the door with a final click. I stood there a moment, the Montana chill seeping through my coat, then turned back to my truck.
No tears.
No outburst, just a hollow ache. I drove to the hospital's on-call room, a sterile box with a cot and fluorescent hum. It wasn't home, but at least it didn't reject me. The next morning, under a steel-gray sky threatening snow, I circled back to the ranch, parking down the dirt road to avoid notice. I needed answers, or at least closure. Using the hidden key under the loose fence post, Mom's old trick from when we were kids sneaking in late, I slipped inside. The house felt alien, new throw pillows on the couch, a vase of dried wildflowers that weren't there before. The Wi-Fi name had changed from Reed Ranch to Lacey's Haven. My bedroom? Gutted. No bed. No posters from my high school rodeo days. No medical textbooks stacked in the corner. Just bare walls repainted sage green. A whiteboard with Lacey's notes. Board meeting 9 a.m. Submit Gran App. I sank to the floor, the knot in my chest tightening. They'd wiped me out, not just moved my stuff, but sanitized my existence. Mom's letters to me during chemo?
Gone.
My first stethoscope from Dad when I got into nursing school? Vanished. Through the wall, I heard muffled laughter. Lacey and her boyfriend, Ethan, clinking glasses, a TV droning some reality show. She probably thinks she still owns the place, Lacey giggled. I pulled out my phone. Hit record. Capturing their casual cruelty. Not for revenge, but to remind myself this was real. On my way out, I spotted my old wool scarf, Mom's chemo gift, balled up in the laundry as a rag. And in the sink, Mom's favorite porcelain mug, chipped but cherished. They took without asking, claimed by right of possession. Back in my truck, I didn't rage. Instead, a quiet resolve settled in. If they could erase me here, I'd rebuild where they couldn't touch. That afternoon, nursing a coffee at a diner off Highway 191, I checked my old Etsy account. There they were, listings from a seller in our zip code. Vintage stethoscope. Used by Real Doc. Hand-knitted quilt. Ranch heirloom. Photos showed my handwriting on labels. My quilt as backdrop. They weren't just discarding. They were profiting off my life. I screenshotted everything. Reported the listings. This wasn't paranoia. It was proof. By evening, I drove to the family plot at the edge of the ranch, where Mom was buried under a cottonwood tree. Kneeling in the dry grass, I whispered, "You saw this coming, didn't you?" The wind rustled the leaves. A faint reply. I wasn't broken yet, just awakening. Days blurred into a haze of shifts at the hospital and sleepless nights in my cramped apartment in downtown Bozeman. A far cry from the sprawling ranch. I'd rented it on a whim after Mom's death 5 years ago. A safety net I never thought I'd need.
Now,
It was my fortress, plain walls, a second-hand couch, and stacks of medical journals. But the silence there echoed louder than the ranch's vast emptiness. I dove into work, volunteering for extra hours in the ER, where the chaos drowned out the betrayal. A cowboy with a broken arm from a bucking bronco. A tourist with altitude sickness. Each case a distraction. But in quiet moments, I'd pull up the recordings, the screenshots, piecing together the puzzle. Lacey hadn't just locked me out. She'd built an empire on my back. One evening, scrolling Facebook Marketplace while eating cold pizza, I found more, my track ribbons from high school, Mom's old church hymn cassette, all listed under Lacey's alias. The descriptions twisted the knife, sentimental items from a dedicated healer's collection. I reported them too, but anger simmered into something sharper, determination. I created a digital folder, reclamation, uploading every scrap of evidence. Then came the breakthrough. A colleague, Sarah, forwarded an email from the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services. It was a caregiver stipend report, state-funded payments for ongoing care. Recipient, Lacey Reed. Patient, Margaret Reed, our mom. Dead from cancer. Authorized by Dr. Taylor Reed. My signature? Forged. A clumsy imitation missing my distinctive loop on the Y. This wasn't just family drama. It was fraud. Clear as day under Montana law. Forging a medical professional's signature on government forms could mean felony charges, audits, even jail time if intent to defraud was proven. My pulse raced, but I stayed methodical. I drafted a report to DHHS, detailing the deceased status, the forgery, my credentials as a licensed physician. But I held off sending. Rushing could backfire, turning it into a he-said mess. Instead, I consulted a lawyer friend, Jake, over coffee at a local spot overlooking the Gallatin River. "Taylor, this is solid," he said, scanning the docs. "Medicaid fraud's no joke here in Montana. Fines up to $50,000 per violation. Possible restitution. But family ties complicate it. You sure you want to go nuclear? Not nuclear, I replied. Just justice. And maybe a chance for them to own up. Jake nodded. Start with a cease and desist letter for the identity use. Keep it civil. Montana courts favor mediation in family disputes. Back home, I unearthed Mom's old box from under my bed, labeled for Taylor, when needed. Inside, a yellowed envelope, only if you forget your worth. Her note read, I knew they'd try to overshadow you, sweetheart. So I left this. Attached, a copy of the ranch deed, signed over to me before her death, witnessed but unfiled due to her declining health. Under Montana property law, it could challenge Dad's current ownership if proven her intent. Tears came then, not rage, but grief for what could have been. I scanned it all, secured copies in a safe deposit box at the bank. No more reacting, I was strategizing. That night, my phone buzzed, a text from my little brother. Cody, you okay out there? We hadn't spoken in months. He'd fled to Billings after Mom's funeral, avoiding the fray. Still kicking, I replied. His response, miss you. Sorry I ghosted. It thawed something in me. Maybe not all bridges were burned. The next day, I attended a community brunch at the local VFW hall, where Lacey was hosting a fundraiser for her Reed Wellness Foundation, a nonprofit supposedly aiding rural healthcare. Flyers everywhere, her smiling face front and center. I slipped in unnoticed. Badge hidden. The room buzzed with ranchers, doctors.
Lockout si pingpun.
Lacey took the mic. Families about stepping up when times are tough. This foundation honors that compassion in action. I scanned the display board, timelines of family achievements, photos of Lacey volunteering, Dad beaming beside her, stepmom Harper in the mix.
Me, erased.
Not a single shot for my med school graduation or ER awards. A daisy on an empty chair read, for those who've moved on. My stomach churned. Lacey wore Mom's silver locket, the one I'd kept safe. During Q&A, hands shot up. I raised mine, voice steady, as Dr. Taylor Reed. I'd like clarity on the Foundation's use of my credentials in grant apps. Gasps rippled. Lacey's face paled. Who authorized my forged signature on those forms? She stammered. This isn't the place. It is, I pressed.
Calm.
Montana law requires transparency in nonprofits. Let's discuss it openly. Murmurs grew. A board member approached. We should talk privately. I nodded, leaving with dignity. Outside, under the vast sky, I breathed deep. This wasn't vengeance, it was visibility. Back at the apartment, I emailed Lacey. We need to talk. No threats, just truth. No reply, but the seed was planted. The fallout hit like a Montana blizzard, sudden and blinding. Lacey didn't call, but Harper did. Her voice sharp over the phone. Taylor, you're stirring up trouble. This could ruin us all. I listened, heart heavy. Harper, it's not about ruin. It's about righting wrongs. The forgery, the grants, it's illegal. She huffed. Family handles this in-house. Come to the ranch Sunday, we'll sort it. I agreed. Not for peace, but for closure. Driving the winding roads to the ranch, snow flurries dancing in my headlights. I rehearsed my words.
No accusations.
Just facts. Dad met me at the door, his weathered face lined deeper than I remembered. Taylor. Girl. This mess. Let's talk. Inside, the tension was thick as fog off the Yellowstone River. Lacey sat rigid, Ethan beside her like a bodyguard. Harper poured coffee, avoiding eyes. Cody video called in from Billings, his face pixelated but earnest. I laid out the evidence gently, screenshots. The forged stipend form. The unfiled deed. Under Montana Statute 45-6-325, forging a signature for financial gain is fraud. The nonprofit grants using my name without consent? That's misrepresentation. Could trigger an IRS audit. Dad rubbed his temples. I didn't know the half of it. Lacey said it was all above board. Lacey's eyes flashed. You were never around. Taylor, working those endless shifts while I cared for Mom. Ran the ranch. I deserved that stipend, but Mom's been gone 5 years, I said softly. Continuing claims is theft from the state, and using my license endangers patients if something goes wrong. Ethan chimed in. It's just paperwork. No harm done.
No, ikundat.
Harm to trust. To our family. And legally, it could mean probation. Fines. Worse if prosecuted. Cody spoke up. Sis. I should have said something sooner. I saw the changes. The erasing. It wasn't right. Tears welled in Lacey's eyes. I thought you'd abandoned us. After Mom, you buried yourself in work. I was grieving too, I admitted. But that doesn't justify this. We talked for hours. Voices rising then softening. Dad confessed the ranch was struggling, debts from Mom's medical bills. Lacey admitted the foundation started as a tribute but spiraled into shortcuts for funding. I forged it once, thinking it'd be temporary. Harper sighed. We all played a part in pushing you away. By dawn. No hugs. But a plan. Lacey would self-report the forgery to DHHS. Amend the grants. Remove my name. We'd mediate the deed through Jake, perhaps co-ownership to save the ranch. It wasn't perfect, but it was humane, rooted in Montana's spirit of resilience. Back in Bozeman, I felt lighter, like shedding a heavy pack after a long hike. Work pulled me in, a multi-car pileup on I-90 kept me focused. But in breaks, I'd reflect, family isn't blood alone, it's choosing accountability. A week later, Lacey texted, filed the report. They're investigating. But I owned up. Relief washed over me. The legal clarity brought healing, not destruction. As winter gripped the Rockies, the investigation unfolded methodically. Montana style, thorough but unhurried. DHHS auditors visited the ranch, reviewing records. Lacey cooperated, providing amended forms. The penalty, a $10,000 fine, probation, and restitution for overpaid stipends. No jail, first offense. Full admission. The nonprofit restructured. My credentials scrubbed clean. I didn't gloat. Instead, I offered help. Let me consult legitimately, I said during a family Zoom. Make it real. Lacey hesitated, then nodded.
Deal.
Dad and I walked the ranch fences one crisp morning, mending wire like old times. Proud of you,
Taylor, he said.
for standing up without burning it down. It's not about winning, I replied. It's about rebuilding. Cody moved back part-time, helping with chores. Harper softened, sharing Mom's recipes over Sunday dinners. Tensions lingered. Old wounds don't vanish, but dialogues opened, raw and real. At the hospital, I trained interns on ethics. Boundaries matter. Forgery isn't a shortcut, it's a breach that erodes trust. One asked about my story.
Learn from it, I said.
Family drama can teach resilience. Spring thawed the ground, and with it, a new chapter. We filed Mom's deed jointly, ranch in trust for all siblings. Legally sound, emotionally binding. One evening, under a fiery sunset, Lacey and I sat on the porch. I'm sorry, she whispered. For locking you out. For everything. I forgive you, I said. But let's promise. No more secrets. We hugged. Tentative, but true. The lesson? Betrayal hurts. But honesty heals. Summer brought golden fields and a sense of renewal to the ranch. The foundation thrived ethically. With me as advisor, grant apps transparent, services aiding real rural folks. No more erasures. Family photos included all. Even the messy ones. I balanced work and home, finding peace in both. A patient once said, "Doc, you seem grounded." I smiled. Took a storm to get here. The light lesson lingered. In the vast West, where isolation breeds secrets, communication is the true lifeline. Family isn't perfect, but choosing empathy over revenge turns betrayal into bonds. As I drove under endless skies, Mom's mug in the cup holder, I whispered, "We made it." Redemption wasn't dramatic, it was quiet growth. One honest step at a time.